are the mayor there. And congrats on becoming mayor just last year, right?
Thank you. Just this past November,
Yeah.
thrilled to have the opportunity and thrilled to be able to serve Pawleys.
Excellent. Well, just starting out, talk a little bit about how did you all fare with Monday's severe weather? It was pretty brutal for certain areas. How did you all do?
It really was. My wife and I woke up pretty early Monday morning and saw the thunderstorms, and we were watching the news and saw Charleston and some areas down south of us getting hit pretty hard, and tornadoes and whatnot. So we watched it pretty closely. But essentially, what we got was heavy rain and some wind. I know there was some damage further south of us, but we fared pretty well, and we feel fortunate to have come through that in good stead.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, I had to wake my family up early in the morning, my husband and I, and we had to go for shelter.
Did
So
you? Did Myrtle Beach
yeah.
sustain some damage?
Well,
I
we are
hadn't.
at Somerville.
Oh,
So yeah.
Summer. Oh, gosh. Okay. Did not really. Yeah, I bet you did. Somerville was in the direct path for sure.
Yeah, so taking heed. Another thing, the elephant in the room, of course, the pandemic that we're dealing with the coronavirus. How are you all faring as far as that is concerned there on the island?
Yeah. Everyone's pretty much taking it in stride. I mean, several weeks ago, there was some stress and concern about gatherings on the beach and, the continued traffic before the governor's executive orders tamped all of that down. But for the most part, Pawleys Island's a pretty laid back place, and, the residents, and there are probably a few property owners that have come here from out of town that have owned properties for a while and decided to maybe leave Atlanta or Charlotte or other areas to come maybe be in a less populated place. So, we've got a good mix of residents and property owners here, and it's pretty much taking it in stride, I would
Yeah,
say.
very
But,
good.
go ahead.
Yeah. And just talk a little bit about, you said you all have fared well, but how the people that you've talked to of your town, what are they saying? What are they feeling? What are those frontline workers saying and feeling?
Sure. I think the feeling of isolation is beginning to take somewhat of a toll. Fortunately, we have the beach, which it's closed essentially to public accesses, but the roads are pretty low traffic and people are able to get out and walk around. Our staff on Pawleys Island is essentially the police department and a town administrator and secretary. Those guys are working from home as far as the administrator and secretary of the town. The police force is out and making sure there's no gatherings. We have folks that like to fish on the causeways and in the creek side, and they just make sure that everyone's maintaining social distancing and not gathering and such. But for the most part, I think we're doing pretty well. I know it's a stressful time and there's a lot of uncertainty, and we continue to have our normal meetings of town council. We meet once a month, and we met on Monday, and we did that in a virtual way. Using Zoom and conference calls and such. So we're trying to maintain as much normalcy as we can, and so far so good. But I think everyone's getting anxious to reopen and move forward. And one of the big decisions we're trying to make as a town is when we reopen to short-term rentals. We closed down short-term rentals around the same time other coastal communities did. And in essence, the state shut down short-term rentals not long thereafter when we decided. But we have prohibited short-term rentals until May 1st. We're going to meet again on Thursday next week, April 23rd, to make a determination on, are we going to extend that beyond May 1st, which is likely, but we're not sure. Maybe May 15th. We don't want to extend it out too long because we have a lot of property owners that depend on the rentals to pay for those elevated property taxes that we have. And I own a bed and breakfast in Pawleys Island, and I would love for us to open up and really just start to return to some normalcy, because South Carolina really, obviously we don't want anyone to contract the virus or as few deaths as possible, but South Carolina has fared pretty well, and we don't want to open too quickly. But at the same time, I feel like, the governor's done a fine job of managing the situation, and I know he's contemplating the best time to to get the state moving again. And I certainly support his efforts, but we're anxious to hear, and we're going to make some decisions soon.
Yeah, and as you said, so you have a vested interest as a business owner, and with this time of the year being the time that so many people want to be out there and out on the beach and enjoying rental.
Very much so. And, you know, the operation of the town, our finances are somewhat dictated by accommodations tax, hospitality tax that we get from the state and locally. And so, you know, March and April, not as busy. May is when really things start to pick up in a big way. And then once we get to June, July, and August, that's our bread and butter as far as ATAX dollars are concerned. So we're, you know, I wouldn't say we're anxious, but we're trying to anticipate when we can responsibly reopen short-term rentals, which is obviously a big part of our being.
Yeah. And you said the police are out monitoring, making sure people are not gathering and you know, just out socializing.
Right.
But I'm sure you're also encouraging people to get outside, take a breath of fresh air, get out there and exercise with your family in your beautiful town.
There is no doubt about it. My wife and I and our daughters, we try to get out daily and walk, and we try to make it productive by picking up garbage, you know, whether it be a cigarette butt or just a tiny wrapper. We try to pick up every bit of trash that we can. And when we are out, we see a lot of folks biking, walking, waving to one another as we pass on the road. And so that's one of the reasons why I said people are taking it in stride, because folks are getting outside and trying to, you know, just mitigate as much as they can the stress of being locked inside, because it is a beautiful place where we live. Let's face it, coastal South Carolina, we get the fresh ocean air, and it's just a nice place to, you know, because we're just fortunate. You know, they say if you're lucky enough if you live in South Carolina, and especially on the coast. So we feel that way as well.
And I know since you all do have probably quite a few restaurants and bars and places of that, you know, type, they're really feeling this punch right now.
There's no doubt about it. And one of the things that needs clarification is, you know, the town of Pawleys Island, of which I'm mayor, is literally the island, the barrier island of Pawleys Island itself. And then you've got the 29585 zip code, which is Pawleys Island, which I don't have purview over, but obviously I've got business here on Pawleys Island. We've got a takeout business, which fortunately has been able to remain open, and we've been very busy. But there are multiple restaurants and bars and such that we frequent regularly. And I know many of those people personally, and I know that they are anxious to get open again. And I'm very confident that once they do, this community will come out in droves and support them. I just want to encourage, you know, let's not be afraid to get back out once we kind of get the go ahead, and we have to be responsible. But the restaurants and bars, they need us to come back out and resurface and support them. And I feel pretty confident this community will do that in a big way once we have the opportunity to do so.
As we wrap up, what else would you like to add, you know, to your people and to the people that are watching this live, Facebook Live? Again, I'm with Brian Henry, the mayor of Pawleys Island. What would you like to add?
Well, the main thing, the last thing I would like to add is I think that we want to be very responsible and abide by the governor's orders and such. I know some on one side of the spectrum are anxious about not opening too soon and being careful. And then on the flip side, we've got folks that really feel like, let's open the beaches back up. Let's open the accesses. Let's kind of move on with things. My preference would be hopefully to open up Pawleys Island on or before May 15th. And let's move on and let's open our doors. Pawleys is different. We don't have restaurants and hotels and convenience stores and grocery stores on the island itself. We are not a densely populated place. Our beaches are not densely populated. So my preference would be to be more on the side of opening than trying to stay closed beyond. So I would just encourage our folks our friends on the mainland and our residents and property owners on the island. We're going to do the responsible thing. We're going to meet on April 23rd and reevaluate the situation, decide whether to extend beyond May 1st, maybe May 15th. But I'm erring on the side of let's get things back going again and get some normalcy and get some income for some property owners and also the town in the form of tax dollars. So I'm encouraged. We'll see, but we'll continue to communicate on a regular basis as well.
Right. Now, some opponents, some people would say, wow, May 15th, still too early, still, way early.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. And I'm a big college football fan, and I watched Chris Fowler this morning. He did a podcast and he was talking about college football maybe even being postponed to the spring,
Yeah, exactly.
Which is hard to imagine. Something we all love so much and follow. Maybe the NFL starts in the fall, and I can see why people are concerned and afraid. And I especially have sensitivity to the hospital associates and employees. Like, let's not push the envelope because we may get overwhelmed. And I totally get that. And we've been fortunate, I think, in the Georgetown County to not have too many cases, but we don't want to get a wave of that by opening too soon. So I hear all of that. I just, it's a tough call. And I think the governor has a tough road to hoe over the next few weeks because the direction comes ultimately from him. I think the towns can advocate as much as they want, but ultimately that decision has to be made at the state level, and we're going to abide by that. So we all have preferences and we all have desires, but we've got to let the health experts and also the economic folks weigh in on both sides and listen to both sides.
All right. Thank you so much again, Brian Henry, the mayor of Pawleys Island. I appreciate you taking time out with me, and I hope you and your family continue to stay safe.
I appreciate it. Aisha, thank you for the opportunity to communicate in this forum, not only to Pawleys Island, but to the residents and property owners of Pawleys Island proper.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's becoming a very popular forum for a lot of people. Yes.
I think it'll be around a while, don't you?
I think so. Well, you have a good one.
You too, Aisha. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.